The Philadelphia 76ers are coming off their best win of the entire season, yet the story of the game had to do with refereeing. I want to break down what went right for the Sixers on the basketball court and what continues to go wrong from the NBA's perspective when looking at the refereeing on the floor. Yes, this has been a problem that has expanded around the league all season and for quite some time, and last night very well might have been the exclamation point, as we have takes from like the Athletic Sam Vecini, who says, quote, just caught up and watch what happens with the 76ers Spurs tonight, and I think that was truly the worst officiated game I've seen in my entire life. What in the world? Now, Sam Vecini, obviously a guy who's seen quite a bit of basketball in his lifetime. I'm very much a fan of his work, particularly around the draft time, and he's not the only one to be speaking out on this. So I do want to dive into what specifically went wrong with the Andre Drummond altercation, him being ejected and then unejected, and then Joel Embiid being ejected and everything else that led up to it. So I'm going to start right there with the Andre Drummond play right here. So I'm going to start off by playing it an inbounds pass, and actually let me set the stage a little bit better. That at this point in time, for starters, Andre Drummond, one of the most even-keeled, down-to-earth NBA players that you will find, one of the nicest guys off the court, who does not let his expressions get out of control very often, got hit with a technical foul, as he did foul Wembanyama on an out-of-bounds play, basically pushed him over, two guys get entangled. I think it was a fair initial technical foul. The Spurs go and take the field goal. Now, the free throw here. Now, when they're attempting this free throw, we see Andre absolutely giving it to Wemby in a way that we really do not see very, very often from Andre, calling him soft, trying to get in his face, looking up to him in a way that was pretty funny to me there. And then they step back for this second inbounds play. And like I think everyone else viewing, that my eyes were locked in on what is going on between Andre Drummond and Victor Wembanyama. And unfortunately, despite the reaction from the referees, the answer is basically nothing there. But to play this play out, you can see how Wembanyama essentially slips over his own foot here. And you can see as he goes down, the referee immediately with the second technical foul for Andre Drummond sends him out of his game. And you can see the shock in the big fella's face here. So Drummond rightfully upset by this, that he's kind of giving it back to the referee. Nick Nurse having to be restrained from the referee, and rightfully so, that once again, this was one of the more out of control calls that I can see. And here's a nice close of it, as it is Wemby basically just tripping over his own feet. Now, for Victor Wembanyama, I won't lie to you guys, when watching this last night, I thought he was doing way too much. That I thought this was intentional. I think that is essentially a flop there, him trying to sell the call, and shout out to him. I guess it worked. For Wemby specifically, he was asked about it after the game, and I do kind of respect the response that he did give. So to kind of pull up what he exactly said here, the quote we have from Victor Wembanyama, quote, just stepped on my foot and I fell. That's it. I just got tripped. I didn't mean to fall. I didn't expect the foul to be called. I just fell. So I do respect this response from Wembanyama here. But once again, as I mentioned, when watching this live last night, I won't lie, I did get the feeling that he was intentionally trying to flop, sell calls, and getting the benefit of the doubt from the referee's perspective. Now, the bigger story of the game was the altercation with Joel Embiid. Now, unfortunately, for some technical difficulties here, trying to get the video to work, cannot get it to play, but I will lay it out with and kind of give the background. We have a couple quotes from the pool report that I think are incredibly important here. But for the Joel altercation, for starters, I liked what I saw from Joel Embiid last night, that I thought he was in attack mode, ultimately did not play much, just 14 minutes as he was ejected in the second quarter there, had just 8 points, 3 rebounds, an assist, and 2 steals at the point of ejection, just 2 of 8 shooting from the field. But what stood out to me is I saw the locked-in version of Joel Embiid. I saw him licking his chops and being in attack mode when Victor Wembanyama was his primary matchup. And let's not forget the last time that these two guys faced off. Actually, the two previous times these two guys faced off. In one, Joel Embiid scored 70 points, and in the other, he got the Olympic gold medal. So a pretty decent track record for Joel Embiid now here. Now, for last night's matchup, Joel also smelled blood in the water from the foul perspective. That Wembanyama had 3 fouls before halftime. Embiid was driving down the court with the ball in his hand, had an opportunity to go at Wemby, and took his chance there. Now, I don't have an issue with this being called an offensive foul, the play that it was. Then Joel gets called for the offensive foul from the referee, Jenna Schroeder here. Stands up, gets in Jenna's face, yells at her. She's very quick with the first technical, and I think kind of the universal relationship that goes on between between referees and NBA players here is when you give the quick technical, you got to let them get their piece in a little bit, that you take whatever their chirp is and move on. That felt like what was going down to me, that it was Joel Embiid continuing to give a chirp and then starting to walk away, continuing to say, and that's when he gets hit with the second technical, and that's when he absolutely loses his mind here. So the optics of this are not great, but we did get a conversation after the game. I want to start off with the first pool report, this quote that popped up, and this coming from the NBA directly saying, after post-game review, there is incidental contact with both of them, but it was incidental in nature. There was nothing that warranted any further punishment. It was just incidental in nature. And to give the full context of this, the pool report overall. So the initial question here is saying the main question is about Joel Embiid and the ejection. I know he was arguing, but what was the cause of the ejection, and did he hit the referee? And this is what that is in response to which the head ref, which is Blair here, says after post-game review, there is incidental contact with both of them, but it was incidental in nature. There was nothing that warranted any further punishment. It was just incidental in nature. So that meaning I think this is a open and shut case that we will not see a suspension or a fine with Joel Embiid, anything beyond that, just that he was ejected for basically a call that probably should not have happened there. And to continue on, what was the cause of the ejection? He was given 2 unsportsmanlike technical fouls, which by rule is an automatic ejection. Then the question, the sequence with Andre Drummond where he was ejected and then he was brought back into the game. When you look at the review and you saw that he didn't cause the foul, right? And then Blair says, after review, it was determined that Drummond stepped on Wembanyama's foot and it was deemed incidental contact. Is that why the flop was taken off? Blair, correct, because Wemby tripped over Drummond's foot. So that is why the point was taken off the board. Correct. So to kind of unwind and recognize that sequence again, just take a second to think how crazy and what malpractice this is from a refereeing perspective, that a player was called for a technical foul, ejected from the game, then told to return to the game. He checks immediately back into the game. The Sixers are given a technical foul free throw for flopping on Wembanyama. Maxey makes the free throw, and then that point is taken off the floor, or taken off the board because it is no longer called a flopping penalty. There was like 4 different things that happened there, and none of them are right. And I think that's kind of my overall message in this video here is anytime that refereeing is your number one takeaway from a game, it is a problem. The fact that I know Jenna Schroeder's name is a problem. When I know it's guys like Joey Crawford or all the referees that you know on a name-by-name basis, there's probably a problem there. There's probably an issue with that. You should not want to recognize these guys, and that became the story with Jenna Schroeder last night. Now, for the Sixers overall, do want to highlight the victory, and number one, the first guy that I'll give a shout out to is Tyrese Maxey. I thought there was very clearly a new pep in his step, a new energy, a new focus, a hunger, a confidence that he was playing with from the second that Joel Embiid was ejected from that game. That it felt like the big fella is out, I am carrying the torch, and that is exactly what he did. Ultimately on the game, that Maxey finished with 32 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, was just 2 assists shy of his second career triple-double there. Shot 12 of 25 from the field and 5 of 11 from 3. Some really good numbers there. The version of Tyrese that you hope to see, and putting kind of an exclamation point on it with a steal and slam to ultimately ice the victory last night. It was a hard-fought game down the stretch. That this Spurs team is not a pushover by any means. They're still earlier in their developmental arc, and they have added some nice veterans, the Harrison Barnes, the Chris Pauls, to this youthful roster. Victor Wembanyama still getting through the growing pains of becoming the, NBA centerpiece that at some point I do think he will walk into that conversation. But I did think last night was a little bit of a call to the adults table that he needed a little bit of a humbling from. That you're not going to be able to just flop around the court and be rewarded with it, even though the referees tried their best last night. But from the NBA's perspective, and that's kind of my main message of this video here, for all these talks about viewership being down and ratings being down, well, last night was a perfect opportunity. Why? Instead of seeing these guys play basketball, we see guys getting ejected from the game for little to nothing there. People had this game circle wanting to see Joel Embiid face off with Victor Wembanyama after he scored 70 points against him the last time that these two faced off at an NBA game. Well, we only saw 14 minutes of Joel Embiid being in the action there because he was thrown out here. Now, I understand you can't just give guys the free clearance to say and do whatever they want, which is the, opposite end of the spectrum here. But you also, as a referee, have to have some thick skin and allow guys to get their piece off and have their opinion there. That's what should have happened. Nobody benefits from Joel Embiid getting kicked out of the game. Not the Sixers, not the fans that paid the tickets to be there, not the people watching on TV, not the league as a whole who wants these matchups to happen here. It is a lose-lose-lose across the board for everyone involved, and I do think that is an indictment on the refereeing perspective and how things were handled last night. So regardless, it is still a victory in the win-loss books for the Sixers. They still have a lot of work to do on the season and to pull up the standings ahead of tomorrow's Christmas matchup with the Boston Celtics here. They're up to 10-17 on the season. That is only their second victory against a team with a winning record. Still a lot of basketball play left to be played this year. They are a game and a half out of the play-in tournament, which at this point should be the target. You got to move up, got to kind of climb the ladder one step at a time, and that should be their first target that they do have in hand. But there's a lot of hoops left to be played this season. Let's not rule out them climbing all the way up into those top 6 seeds. I'm back in on that being an open-minded conversation to have. For example, at how the standings currently sit, that is the Miami Heat with a 14 and 13 seed. So what does that mean? The Sixers are 4 games back out of the 6th seed with about 50 plus games left to be played on the season here. So a lot of basketball to be played. I am encouraged by what I saw from Joel Embiid in the half of basketball for what we saw from him yesterday. I do think, and obviously this has to play itself out, and this can look like a stupid take at any given moment given the context of Joel, but it does feel like he's starting to put these injury issues behind him to work back to the player that we know him to be and the centerpiece that the franchise expects him to be able to live up to. So I hope that is the case, and I do think tomorrow is going to be a nice opportunity for them to show it. I don't expect them to ultimately I'd be surprised if they ultimately upset this Boston Celtics team, but I think the Sixers team has far more of a pulse than people expect, and they are starting to come together and build in the right way there. I think last night was the first time it felt like a team victory for the Sixers roster, and I think they needed that. They needed to see that there. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Hopefully there is a fix to these refereeing issues in the future, but regardless, we're going to be here breaking things down every step of the way. So appreciate each and one of you guys tuning into this video here. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Happy holidays. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video, and I'll be back talking with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.